What's up, guys? Welcome back to the MontyVerse. Today we're going to be reacting to the premiere episode of She-Hulk, a Disney Plus Marvel series that I am super excited for. Joining me today is Nikki, aka the Egglord. What's up, Nikki?
Not too much. I've been looking forward to this series, and I'm ready to get into it.
I'm a massive She-Hulk fan from the comics, so let's just jump right in because I can't wait any longer. You ready?
I'm ready to go.
Let's do it, guys. Let's see if they added anyone.
I'm trying to think who has come out that's new.
Oh, Kamala.
Come on, yeah.
Oh, Jane.
Yeah.
Jane, yep.
Oh, there she is.
Oh, you saw Kamala?
She was in the R. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I totally missed it. Good eyes.
Thank you.
What is the responsibility of those with power? Do they merely have an obligation to refrain from the misuse of that power? Or do they have a duty to protect those without it?
This is so Spider-Man.
In what way?
With great power comes great responsibility.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
They
all the
did this because
UCLA
they
stuff.
believed
She
they would
graduated
not
from
be held
UCLA
accountable.
School of Law in the
That
comics.
their power shielded them from very real
very good school.
consequences. Can prove that's not the case.
You in the case, and you are not helpful here at all.
I love how he was just telling her to smile more.
Look, we got plenty of time to switch things up and let me do the closing.
Dennis, you aren't aware of this, but I will kill you and Jen will prosecute. So I'm gonna get away with it.
Only because it's a conflict of interest, not because I condone murder. Bye, Dennis.
You're gonna listen to a paralegal over another lawyer?
Okay, stop.
This is unprofessional.
Stick the landing on this case.
You will. And if it doesn't go our way, we can just Hulk out, blow everyone's minds.
Oh, well, the only hulking out I'm gonna do is in the legal sense.
Oh no, Jen.
No. Only tell it to you. Yeah, about that. It's true. I am a Hulk, and I'm guessing you're not going to be able to focus on this
sure first
fun
of
lawyer
many
show until
fourth
you know
wall
all
breaks.
about that. So let me get you up to speed.
I thought it was actually,
Yes, that Bruce.
it's all because, I made this little device which keeps me
What
in
a
human
neat
form.
little exposition
That was
dump.
the longest answer to what have you been up to.
What's up with this?
Oh,
Cheetos and chopsticks?
Yes,
I am
you
guilty.
know
I do that.
Oh, he does.
That's a little nod to fellow
Really
MCU
smart.
You're not the only
superhero Oscar
genius in the
Isaac,
family.
No, there's
who
also
made that
Chet.
famous.
Okay, so
No.
the History Channel. So he becomes Captain America, and from that moment on, a symbol of America, he is rushed to the front lines, he becomes a war hero. Then he is frozen in ice.
Right.
So, based on
Right.
everything you've told me,
Mhm.
after he gets unfrozen, he goes from world-threatening disaster to world-threatening disaster. That's when he's not a fugitive from the law, right? So it seems like he was pretty busy.
All you're doing is...
Obviously, Captain America was a virgin.
Okay, so I saw this clip already. Have you seen the clip that they released?
No, I try staying away from a lot of the clips that they released after the last trailer.
Okay, because that's essentially a Segarran ship, which was the planet they were on.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Inhibitor.
Ooh.
Jen, get away from me. I'm bleeding. Get away.
So a very streamlined version of her
Oh, shit.
comic book origin.
Oh, no. That was really fast.
And I like how she's got the white on as an homage to the savage She-Hulk look.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I thought that sign said Roxxon. Roxxon's basically like an evil corporation in Marvel Comics, and Jen Walters has gone up against them many times in court.
Oh, that's a really good catch.
Yeah.
Oh, girl, what happened to you?
Who did this to you?
Are you okay?
Okay, no judgments, but whoever did this to you does not care about you.
You do not need him or her.
Good for them.
It really is. That is super
Got
sweet.
some here.
Just
Take these
seeing
right here.
the women help her out when they see, like, even if they're drawing the wrong conclusion, that's really sweet of them.
put makeup on me.
It's just they see a woman in need, they help her. You know, that's a nice, refreshing change.
Even giving her a full makeover.
He has the keys. Hey.
And we get the inverse.
Yep.
How you doing?
Fine, thank
You with anyone?
you. I'm waiting for my ride.
What's your name?
Hey, can they come back now, please?
Come on, where you going? Let us keep you
Hey, we're
company.
just being friendly.
Yeah, where you going? So what? You too good to
A
talk
friendly
to us?
guy doesn't have to say he's friendly. makeup stayed really intact.
Hulk has the ability to maintain makeup durability. That's such a Tony Stark shirt.
Yeah.
Oh, that might be Tony Stark shirt. Oh, is that? That's an Iron Legion head. That's the one that Ultron used in Age of Ultron.
Hello?
This is a nice house.
Smart Hulk. Wow. Yeah, I didn't come up with it. You never have a choice with these names.
Sure.
Uh-huh.
Where are we?
Mexico. Yeah, Tony built it for me a few years ago. Tony Stark. He used to joke that it was a loaner, that one day he'd just swing by and take it back.
Stark.
You okay?
I just love how we're getting all this expansion on like what happened to the Hulk.
Do we hit a spaceship?
All the questions that people have.
Segarra and Class A courier
See?
craft.
Segarra.
They're probably trying to deliver a message. I gotta get to the bottom of that. After the wreck, and you got a lethal dose of gamma radiation.
Lethal? As in I'm gonna die?
No, there was more to it that I'm going to explain.
That is not the sentence to take a pause on, Bruce.
Okay. Look, and the way it synthesized gamma, I was able to use it to completely heal my arm.
Oh. Because I'm better than you?
It's basically different. In conclusion, my arm is healed, and now I'm able to be my fully integrated self again.
Smug Hulk.
Smart Hulk.
Well, it's pretty smug to call yourself smart.
So, now that I've actually analyzed your blood samples, it's way too dangerous to get out in the world, even if there's only a 1,000,000% chance that it makes another one of us.
Okay, you've
Oh, that's
analyzed
not gonna
everything.
come back
Now
up
fix
again.
me.
No,
Get me
not
back
at
to
all.
normal.
Food!
You feeling better?
Okay.
Hulk self.
Well, how long is that gonna take?
This is a multi-year journey you're about to embark on coming to terms with being the Hulk. I traced all of my steps through my evolution. I never thought that it would end up being a syllabus, but here we are.
Well, that's convenient.
Now, with my help, hopefully, your progress will go a little bit faster than mine. Transformations are triggered by distressed emotional states, so we need to know the exact threshold that causes it for you.
Ooh, put on a Pixar movie. When Bing Bong jumps
Pixar.
out of the wagon and Inside
Yeah,
Out.
but Inside Out's overrated.
No, stop.
It's true.
I need to focus. The triggers are anger and fear.
Those are like the baseline of any woman just existing.
All right then, let's try this.
Stand up! You normally use this chamber for, you psychopath!
That's a good question. Okay, the blades say Stark Industries. Because he built the lab. That makes sense now.
Easy.
Why are you talking to me like I'm a stray horse?
Jen?
Cool.
Bruh. You know,
Bruh.
that's about $1 million worth of damage back there, by the way. I guess we can just skip all that then.
He's so bitter.
Yeah, it kind of seems like I'm done here. Okay, it seems like the common thread, though, is being unconscious.
Not necessarily. One time, I was stuck as the other guy for over 2 years. That was in outer space.
No, I can't stay like this for 2 years.
About accepting the situation you're in.
Oh, I thought it was about getting my butt tight as hell.
Gross, Jen, I'm your cousin. Just close your eyes. I can see that you're not ready for DBT.
Jeez, what the hell, man?
Still in control, no overwhelming feelings of rage.
No, a normal amount of rage.
You do revert
I
back
can
to
relate.
Gen form when you sleep.
Was the air horn really necessary?
For comedy, absolutely.
Me?
Yeah, just grab a little boulder and take it easy on this first one. Just trying to show you how it's done.
I'm shown.
Being a Hulk asks
It's easy.
He is so petty.
punk. Our bodies metabolize alcohol incredibly fast.
Steve Rogers.
It's a good time doing
Aw, science bros.
that.
I mean, Tony's definitely the one who put those Hulk pinatas. 100%.
I know. It'd be funny if he did paper mache, though.
I have to deal with a Hulk-size hang.
Okay, so that is from the
I'll have
comics.
to put it in the binder.
Jen has the ability to not get drunk because her metabolism processes alcohol
out
so
there.
fast. But when she reverts back to the Jen form, after drinking, she does feel the effects of the alcohol,
Oh, okay.
as if she was a normal human.
Yeah, the waves.
Or difficult, or might just literally get murdered. So I'm an expert at controlling my anger because I do it infinitely more than you. So all of this just feels like projecting a lot of shit onto me.
She does speak the truth.
See.
No, I'm doing this.
Okay, this is completely new territory.
Yeah, no shit.
Spent a lifetime running from this aspect of
I love how he
myself.
just has a custom
Denying
Hulk-sized
being
Jeep.
is no way to live. Trust me.
They very much thought ahead.
Okay, I wanted to do it a little. Why? Wouldn't you listen to someone who's been through all this before?
Because we're different people.
Lunkhead!
Dummy!
That's all you got?
Oh, shit.
Okay, that's a callback to the Hulk's weakness against sonic weaponry.
Oh, okay.
For we see that in the Incredible Hulk.
Oh, no, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, God, not the bar.
Oh, that's kind of sad,
You're
actually.
fixing it.
Yes.
So if you want to go back to your life as a lawyer, I respect that.
Thanks. He doesn't mean that.
Aww. She's part of the science buddies
I love
now.
how they have the giant party bags now.
So you know.
Don't screw this up, Walters.
What a dick
What is
bag.
such a D-bag?
Your closing argument.
Gentlemen of the jury.
Well, so much for being a lawyer show. She almost looks surprised.
In front of everybody. Titania or Jen?
Titania.
Oh, I agree with that. She didn't look like she was trying to like ruin anything.
Yeah.
I like this outfit.
Man, a lot of feet in this episode.
Attorney at law.
Snap. Oof. One shot.
That was cut very quickly.
Oh my god, again with the feet.
The shoes are intact though.
I'm ready to give my closing argument now.
Great ending. Solid ending. I love these credits.
Oh yeah.
Though like it looks like a courtroom drawing.
Yeah. The I don't know if there's a term for it. Like
Yeah,
there's
I didn't know
stenographer.
either.
There's stenographer. I know it's not that, but
Sketch art? I don't know. The
Oh, it's probably that,
court
sketch. I'd
art,
say-
yeah.
but and it looks really cool. Across that sitcom-y vibe.
Oh my god. Bulk spandex and cheese puff.
It's just so sad. Steve Rogers did so much for his country and he never got to experience
She's
that.
still on that.
Did you see that ass?
It's America's ass.
Deserved to die a virgin. It's like so sad.
Steve Rogers is not a virgin.
Interesting.
He lost his virginity to a girl in 1943 on the USO
So it was
tour.
the USO girl.
Yeah, which
I
one?
knew it.
I don't know.
You're not drunk?
Captain America.
I love how she tricked him. She tricked him into answering the question. That was great. Oh gosh, what a great pilot premiere. One thing I did notice right off the way, just before I forget to mention it, is that because we have the captains on when we're watching.
Yeah.
So if we talk over something, we could see it.
Mm-hmm.
She very clearly was talking about Steve in the past tense. She was using was. Captain America was a virgin. Steve Rogers
Yeah.
was a virgin. He, in the post-credit scene, uses is. Captain America, Steve Rogers is not a virgin.
Right.
because we in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you know, people, it's a conspiracy. Maybe Captain America's still alive, but we're getting the implication more recently that people think he's dead.
Right.
So maybe people think he died fighting Thanos, but in actuality, the fact that he's still alive is somewhat of a cover-up.
Right.
So I thought that was pretty cool. I just wanted to mention that right off the bat.
Which definitely makes sense. I mean, Bruce was literally there when he came back from putting the stones back, so he would have that knowledge definitively.
Yeah, he was there. And I just really quick, just before we talk about the episode, because this is the last thing we saw, that direct answer was given during a press tour by Marcus and McFeely, the writers, you know, for multiple Captain America's movies and Endgame and Infinity War. When people kept asking them, you know, is Steve Rogers a virgin? That's the answer they gave. They said, no, he lost his virginity to a USO tour girl, to a girl on the USO tour.
Right.
So the fact they made that canon is the fact that they've been asked so many times that they gave a definitive answer to it is actually pretty funny.
It is.
But now on to the show. You know, I'm a big comic book guy. I have a lot of stuff that I want to cover about the comic book, but let's talk about the show itself first. So, because I know that you're not a big comic book person, so I really want to get your opinion. Me as a comic book fan, I love the way that Jennifer Walters was portrayed in this show. I think that Tatiana Maslany completely nails the character. She understands the character and transforms into the character in a way that is reminiscent of Robert Downey Jr. essentially morphing Tony Stark into his image, and in the way Iman Vellani embodies the essence of Kamala Khan. So for me, I think it was a home run. But tell me a little bit about your thoughts on Jen and just the first episode in general.
I thought Jen was fantastic. Definitely, you touched on it. Tatiana Maslany was incredible. And going into this, I think a lot of people had high expectations just because of her career, especially in Orphan Black. But no, Jen as a character, I really thought she embodied her well. She feels like, for even just a first episode, and for a short first episode compared to the other shows, I think we got a lot of her personality. She's ambitious, she cares about her career, but she has a good sense of humor, and she certainly didn't mind getting drunk with Bruce. So, like, I got a good sense of her as a character, and I enjoyed her a lot. In terms of the episode itself, it sounds like you're pretty high on the episode. Yeah. I very much enjoyed it. I think this is definitely one of the best first episodes of the MCU series. I don't think I'm as big on it as you because going into this, I was definitely looking forward to kind of like the courtroom sitcom feel of it. And I think a lot of this was important backstory, but for me, I was like kind of hoping like Jen, like, okay, can we get out of here? I want to kind of get to the courtroom stuff, which we got a snippet of at the end. Yeah. So I liked it, but I'm more looking forward to what's coming after this, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the way this show is structured, you have to remember, this show, as opposed to the other Marvel shows, is 9 episodes.
Oh, okay.
So you said it was a short premiere, but in actuality, considering each episode's only supposed to be half an hour, it's slightly longer than what we're going to get regularly, I believe. And I think it was longer than WandaVision's first episode by a lot. But I think the way they set this up was everyone was going into this expecting Ally McBeal, legal dramedy, and we are going to get that. That is going to get that. That's going to come. But what this first episode was essentially, it was I want to say it's making fun of the comic book trope of the origin story, and especially of the Hulk, of things we know about the Hulk, which She-Hulk is very famous for doing in the comics, especially during John Byrne's run in the 80s and the Sensational She-Hulk. She-Hulk takes these tropes from the actual comic books and she makes fun of them and references them, and I think this episode does that because it takes this traditional backstory where, you know, like, the hero has to train and there's a training montage and the mentor guides them, and Jen's just like crushing it. She's just like, I got this, I'm good to go, and then Bruce is just petty, and so I think that they're really deconstructing the idea of the stereotypical superhero origin story. It's almost a deconstruction of a deconstruction.
A little bit, yeah, because you touched on some really important points about the deconstruction. Kind of as I was watching it, I felt a little bit the opposite in that, if anything, it seemed like it was hitting a lot of cliches. She's clearly a reluctant hero. She had her own life. She wants to go back to that.
I don't think she's a reluctant hero, if I may interject, because she does say numerous times, I want to help people, but in the courtroom.
Right, but reluctant in, she wants, like...
She just doesn't want to be a superhero.
She wants to be normal, which is literally, like, a crisis I think a lot of... Maybe I just watch too much anime, but that's what a lot of characters who are thrust into these situations, like, that's kind of their initial reaction. But I do actually think you make some interesting points in terms of she's kind of she has the training montage with Bruce, but she's also kind of crushing it at the same time, and he's getting petty and jealous. Like, man, like, I'd had this first. So I think you hit on some interesting points with that. And like you said, she does still want to do good, just not necessarily in that way that Bruce was like kind of expecting of her to do.
Yeah, and she, it's not like she's hesitant. Like the second Titania shows up, she's just like, all right, gonna punch her, you know. So it's not like Shang-Chi where he hides himself away for years and doesn't get involved in anything.
Right.
Like if something goes down, she's ready to go. So that's why I think it's almost a deconstruction of a deconstruction. Because yes, it's a trope of a trope, but then it's also making fun of both of those things. Because it's just like, oh, whatever, you know. But I may be getting too meta. I may be expecting the meta, so I'm seeing double the meta. But yeah. But one thing I do want to touch on is Jen and Bruce.
Yes.
Because their chemistry was fantastic.
Oh, 100%. Like, you 100% bought that they were family members that spent a lot of time together, had a pre-existing relationship. Because that's the crazy thing is, we've been with Bruce and so many of these other characters for over a decade now, and we want to believe, like, oh yeah, we know them. But here's Jen, who's completely new to the MCU. And, like, I just bought it immediately. And I think, one, that speaks to just Tatiana Maslany. But it also speaks to, again, her chemistry with Mark Ruffalo and the way that they have this really fun dynamic throughout the entire episode of they clearly love each other, but there's also that pettiness and rivalry as soon as she kind of poses a threat to him.
Oh, absolutely. The pettiness, the inappropriate jokes, the bickering, the banter, the pettiness, that's all family. Like, a healthy family relationship, like, for me, that felt very familiar. So I immediately bought them as cousins. I think they have a great natural chemistry together. I love the energy they brought when they were in scenes together. It was so good. But unfortunately, I think that's the majority of what we're going to see of Bruce in this series.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay.
Yes, because that was kind of my biggest thing is I know I had heard, and maybe you even told me that Bruce is probably not going to be... we know he's not a lead in the series.
I didn't expect him to be.
Right, but for me, it's like, part of me... Initially, because they show him so much of the promotional material, so I think I had that kind of vision in my head. But you know what? Everything they showed in this episode and the role he played, kind of mentoring her and showing her the ropes, it's like, you know what? Like, he played the role he probably needs to do.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm sure we will eventually see him at some point before the end. But even then, it's like, in this episode at least, he played his role excellently.
Yeah, he was the second lead this episode, but I don't mean we're never going to see him again in this series. I think he's going to continue to pop up. And maybe the next time he'll have a role as big as this one will probably be one of the last episodes of the season to kind of help Jen with whatever. Because realistically, all the stuff we've seen is probably from the first 2 or 3 episodes. Because the majority of the promotional material we got was mostly from this episode so far.
Yeah, especially with the training montages and like I could there's so many like individual shots that I could name that were just familiar because we've seen it from the trailers.
Yeah. So I think that Bruce is going to take a back seat, but then come back later on. Mm-hmm. But I'm okay with that because they did so much with him in this episode. Mm-hmm. Even though Jen was the focal point of this episode, which she should be, because this is a She-Hulk show, She-Hulk should be the main character, which she was. We also got a lot of exposition explaining everything that Bruce, kind of expanding upon the backstory we got of what Bruce did during the blip in Endgame, and what he's been doing since then. They gave us a nice, healthy explanation for why his arm is healing, and then for why his arm is completely healed after the fact, you know? So I like that story, and I like, the one thing I really like that they did is they addressed Hulk's trauma, not only Hulk's trauma, but Bruce's trauma, because Bruce Banner has lived through traumatic experience after traumatic experience after traumatic experience for the past, 20 years in the MCU timeline, and the only time we've ever really explored that was in the first Avengers movie, in depth, really. Yeah. Like, how hard his life is to truly live, having that Hulk inside of him. And this show addresses that. And yes, while they try and make it light and they try and make you laugh, if you really think about and you understand and you empathize with Bruce from his perspective, you can really see why he's so upset, because he essentially had to live the life of a hermit for decades. Yeah. You know, just to control this animal that's inside of him until they kind of came to a mutual understanding. Whereas Jen just is slam dunking on him all the time. So I really like how they touched upon that with Bruce.
Right. You actually did make the really interesting point, because I know in one of the post-credit scenes of Shang-Chi, they showed him and Carol together, and he was no longer Professor Hulk. And And in this, we got that kind of exposition of, like, okay, because I was wondering how that happened again. So I think that is interesting that you brought up, like, all these things that kind of touched on in terms of, like, how did this happen when, like, that contradicts with this, what he went through before. And I will say, like, yeah, you don't want to fall into tell, don't show, but I think it actually fit really well within this episode.
Because it's not like we didn't see.
Right.
We saw bits and pieces. So it wasn't like they told us everything. Because in Endgame, it was more tell, don't show. But now they're retroactively showing. So I think once we're done with this part of the Hulk's journey, we'll have enough pieces to just thread the needle through to just get us one coherent storyline for Bruce.
Yeah, 100%.
But again, this is not Bruce's show. This is She-Hulk, and it was awesome. I really like you touched upon what you thought of the episode, but for me, my thoughts on the first episode was I really enjoyed it. For me, I probably enjoyed it, I don't want to say more, I probably enjoyed it as much as the first episode of Ms. Marvel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it probably would be Ms. Marvel, then She-Hulk is like teetering under or right next to it, then Moon Knight in third place, and then the other premieres are underneath those three, which is weird because those are the last three shows we got in succession. So
I was gonna say, like, I know, like, a lot of people claim recency bias is a thing, and in some regards it can be. But no, I definitely enjoy this episode. Again, I'm not nearly that high. To me, Ms. Marvel is so definitively my favorite first episode. And I actually probably even put Moon Knight over this one. But this was really strong. And I think that it was, again, a great introduction to the character, but also giving us a good feel of what the show is going to be like in terms of tone.
Yeah, because one thing that's important to notice is, like, those earlier series, they were all affected by COVID in one way or the other.
Yeah.
They were all affected by the pandemic. So now we're starting to see Marvel television, Marvel on Disney Plus, unaffected by the pandemic, and how it could really start producing shows at an undisturbed level. You know, that's why I think they keep getting better with every successive series, because now they're starting to hit their groove. That's really what I love about the MCU post Avengers Endgame, and I've been saying this for years now. The MCU is essentially a living, breathing comic book store. You could kind of pick up a show, and if you don't like it, you could drop it, but pick up the next one and fall in love with it completely. Like, every issue is not going to be for every person. Some person may watch all of them and love them, but some person may not, and that's okay, because we're trying to do something different, and I like the different swings that Marvel is taking now. But yeah, go on.
No, I was gonna say, I completely agree with that, because the narrative right now is, well, I just want to preface this. It feels like people can't make up their minds. First, the narrative was a lot of the MCU properties were the same over and over and over again. But now we're getting, like, the most different things, like, the most variation in genres and the type of storytelling we've ever gotten with it. And, of course, there will be a lot of people that aren't going to be into it. But I think, like, that should be a credit. Even if something's not your thing, I like that they're doing that, at least. I mean, talk about Love and Thunder and Multiverse of Madness. Literally could not be more different in terms of tones and genres. And I like the fact that the movies and the shows especially have all, like, kind of taken on their own identities, but also fit together at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will just say the one if I had to make one complaint about this episode, it's not the CGI. I think the CGI looked a lot better.
Yeah.
There were some tiny, minuscule points that I noticed.
Yeah.
But I think overall, they did a huge improvement. So thank you to the VFX artists that worked very hard on the series. We appreciate you guys and all the work you put in. I think it looked fantastic. But I think it was just the end. I think because the creator said in interviews that they had to, due to budget, they went back and they cut out She-Hulk scenes. And that ending looked like it was chopped.
Oh, God. Like, actually, that's something I want to bring up, like, really briefly is, again, I think you sound like you're higher on the episode, and I really much enjoyed it, I think, but actually the choppiness of some parts of it was part of what brought it down a bit for me. I think definitely that ending courtroom scene with Titania was just a little bit all over the place and rushing out of nowhere, which...
Yeah, but it was only like 20 seconds, realistically.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But it was so abrupt, though.
Yeah, you could definitely tell that they only kept in what they had to keep in, like the bare bones of that scene.
And that's not even to say that it was bad.
No.
I think... First, I know we're gonna get more of her. I really like just the little glimpsing of Jameela Jamil as Titania.
Yes.
One, she looks fantastic, and two, just even her one single line within the Valley Girl accent she's doing. I'm excited to see more of her in the series.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see where they're going to take Titania, because in the comics she's heavily tied into the Secret War event in Marvel Comics, and she essentially gets her powers from Doctor Doom.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're going to go that route in the MCU. Well, I'm pretty sure they're not.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm very excited to see how they choose to adapt her for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I think that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But realistically, I just want to ask you one more thing before I kind of kick you off so I can talk comics. But this show has been getting... A lot of people have been criticizing this show for being anti-men.
Mm-hmm.
As a man, I didn't feel that way at all this episode. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think what this show does is it really tries to let the male audience inside of the female perspective, which I, as a man, appreciate. I want, like, Jen just lets you know, like, this is how it is. Like, this is how my life is. And you don't feel the same things I feel.
Right, 100%. And I honestly, because I've seen a lot of people giving it hate on that basis too online, unfortunately. And what I would kind of say to that is, I think the way they portrayed it is, and maybe you could argue it's a little bit heavy-handed because she kind of just monologues a little bit about it, but it was coming from this place of frustration of Bruce bringing up, hey, you have to control your anger, but she's outlines like her own experience, which should not be invalidated at all, but it is so reflective of how I think a lot of women feel, especially in society just in general, and it's a lot of these cliches of being told to smile and don't be too aggressive or don't, just all these like little nitpicks and criticism, which we even saw at the beginning with that guy Dennis that she works with, where Nikki was being so sweet and supportive.
Smile.
Exactly.
Make sure you smile.
Right. And then another thing I was going to bring up is that whole scene at the bar after she first transforms, and you have the contrast between those women who help her out in the bathroom and then those men who then creep on her immediately after.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that is 100% realistic. Now, in a way, you could probably take out that entire scene and it wouldn't really affect the narrative on the whole. You could just skip straight to the island. But in hindsight, especially given her speech that she gives to Bruce later, it just illustrates her points even further. Yeah. And I thought like they did that really well. And I think the ultimate takeaway isn't that, hey, men suck, women are always going to be better. Because I also wouldn't be surprised if people like took that conclusion from her showing up Bruce. That's not the case here. She's, first of all, anyone can be just naturally gifted at anything, regardless of gender. So I think it was more just her kind of reflecting on her experiences that are very much shared, and her just kind of giving kind of a dose of reality from her perspective. And again, it's not saying all men of all time, it's just what a lot of women have had to deal with in the real world.
Yeah, I mean, I think all the show was doing was showing men like, hey, those three guys may have just been playing around and may have just been like, oh, hey, you're cute, what's going on, like being flirtatious. But to Jen, that's terrifying, because these are three guys, muscular, towering over me. So a woman in that situation is terrified, but a guy in that situation may have no ill intention whatsoever, just playing around, just like goofing around, like drunk, like, oh, hey, what's up, sweetheart, where you going? Like, but it shows us the perspective from a female perspective. You know, and I appreciate that, because I feel like more men should grow up with learning that, because we don't have that kind of, especially if you grow up in a house with, you know, brothers, or there's not a lot of women in the household. You need that female perspective from somewhere. So I love how this series is doing that.
Right. And it's just a matter of, like, don't be a dick.
Yeah. I mean, Jen Walters in the comics, during the Savage She-Hulk run, which I think this episode encompasses very well, I think the whole purpose of that run was to differentiate her from Bruce, and to make sure that she was just not Lady Hulk or female Hulk, that she was her own character. And so I think Jen being more gifted and not having, like, as we can see, she doesn't have the proportional strength of Hulk. She can't thunderclap as hard as he can.
Right.
But then she uses her mind, and she does quick successive thunderclaps to create a sonic wave to kind of debilitate the Hulk. So that just shows that they're two very different characters. One's not better than the other, because that fight ends in a tie. So it shows that one's not better than the other. It's just that they're two very completely different people.
And it's also just a case of people also just have different strengths. Yeah. Like, you also don't have to get into this comparison game of who is better or worse than the other. It's just a matter of their own individuality. And that's another thing I applaud, is the fact that she at no point feels like a female copy of Bruce. And that's what makes me more excited for the show, because we're not just getting female Hulk 2.0. We're not getting like a remake of any of the movies with a woman in the lead. It's going to be her own completely unique story told from her experiences as her own character.
All right. Guys, Nikki's going to run off, and then when I come back after the cut, we're going to talk comics. We're going to talk about all the references I caught, what hints they gave to future potential storylines, and what may be coming next in the series. Be right back. Alright guys, there's a lot in this episode that revolves around the comics and potentially where this series may be taking the Hulks in the future of the MCU. Let's start with the Hulk's blood, because the Hulk's blood is a pretty big part of this episode. I mean, we see it transform Jen into the She-Hulk, and they linger on the fact that Bruce destroys Jen's blood directly after testing it, hinting at the fact that even a drop of it could create more of them. We know from The Incredible Hulk that the Hulk's blood played a big part in that movie, with it transforming Emil Blonsky into Abomination, and Samuel Stearns, aka the Leader, is still out there somewhere. So with all of this Hulk blood being directly referenced in this series, is it possible that this is the gateway into introducing us to the Red Hulks? Yes, Red Hulk and Red She-Hulk. I feel like that is a potential future storyline for Hulk and maybe She-Hulk in a future movie going forward. In the comics, Red Hulk is Thunderbolt Ross, but they may have to change that up in the MCU. I don't know, but it's possible that this could be hinting that somehow, someway, the government gets their hands on either Bruce or Jennifer's blood, and they're able to make a Red Hulk and She-Hulk. Let's talk about She-Hulk in the comics, because this series takes a lot of influence from Jennifer's multiple comic runs. I mean, the main premise of this series is based almost entirely on Dan Slott's single green female storyline from the comics, where She-Hulk takes a job at GLKH, which we see referenced in this episode, and she studies superhuman law. And if that is featured in, I don't want to talk about it too much, but if they go to the lengths that they go through in the comics in terms of the court cases we have when defining superhuman law, this series is going to get bonkers really quickly, and I'm super excited to see that and how the MCU defines their version of superhuman law. Also, this episode we get the fourth wall breaking from the John Byrne's 1980s She-Hulk run, the Sensational She-Hulk, which I thought was really cool. But mainly this episode was basically a condensed version of the Savage She-Hulk run of comics. There's even a barcode this episode, and I'm almost 100% positive that if you scan that barcode, it will take you directly to Savage She-Hulk #1, which this episode is mostly based off of. But I think it does a good job of encapsulating the entirety of the Savage She-Hulk run, because basically what that run does is it gives us the origin of Jennifer Walters, but then the run kind of establishes Jennifer as her own version of the Hulk, which this episode does. Now, let's talk about the Segarra of it all, because I think that this show is going to introduce, or maybe lead into the introduction